All right. So who's signing off with Daisy or Film Talk Happens, or you want to do it?
Okay. Yeah, I'll do it.
And say it with zest. Okay.
All right.
You got it. Okay. Here we go. So with that being said, I'm Joe.
I'm Daisy.
And I'm Liss.
And this is the Filmjoe Podcast,
where film talk happens.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
That's a wrap? Okay, good.
Was that too zesty?
Yeah, a few notches down. A few notches down. Okay.
Lights, camera, rolling, action.
I feel the need for speed. Ow!
Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand. Wax on, wax off.
He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses.
Hi, I'm Joe, and this is the Filmjoe Podcast, where film talk happens. Hi, I'm Joe.
I'm Daisy.
And I'm Liss.
And welcome to the podcast where we talk about films, filmmakers, trends, the good, the bad, and the not so bad, all in the spirit and for the love of film. So, it is the 1970s. There was a time when we were experiencing crazy inflation, fuel shortages, the Watergate scandal, overall political upheaval. And it was also the ending of the Vietnam War. Change was abound. And film was also transitioning into a different era. The breakdown of the studio system, the influence of the European New Wave movements in cinema, and it was the first generation of film school graduate filmmakers. Filmmakers like Brian De Palma, George Lucas, Spielberg, Scorsese, Coppola, and they all brought in a new and innovative way to tell stories that would change how we see, hear, consume, and experience films to this day. So here we go. And as we continue our delve into the 1970s. All right. So, guys, guess what?
What? Sorry, that sounded so enthusiastic.
No, you're supposed to go, what? Yes, tell us.
What?
What?
Joe, please, tell us what's going on.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Well, this episode is the second to last episode of the 1970s.
Yoo-hoo!
Yes.
I know you guys enjoy the 70s so much.
It's been tough.
But it's been you're being exposed to a different era of film, of cinema.
It just kind of, validates how I've always felt about the 70s. I really don't like it much, with the exception of like Superman and Star Wars.
One flew over the cuckoo's nest. And that's
Yeah. There's like a certain, there's a few that we really like, but
yeah. I mean, The Exorcist,
awesome.
Dog Day Afternoon. So there's been some pretty good gems. And then your favorite list, what was it? Deliverance.
Damn.
I hated that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, we know. You gave it a really fat 2 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Did I give it a 2? Okay,
You
that's
gave it a
generous. Look at me.
She's like, can I change it?
I must have been in a good mood that day.
Wow. All righty. So what do you say? We go ahead and jump into this week's episode.
Okay,
Sure.
So for this first film, here's an interesting ad in the classifieds. Wanted. 4 men willing to drive a cargo of death and escape a life in hell.
You got a problem. Tell me about it. You gonna tell me where I'm going? I swear to Christ, I don't know.
experienced truck drivers willing to risk their life can do it.
4 unfortunate men from different parts of the globe agreed to risk their lives transporting gallons of nitroglycerin across dangerous Latin American jungle. The film we were talking about here is Scorcerer from 1977, and it is directed by William Friedkin, who brought us such films as The Exorcist, The French Connection, Cruising, and To Live and Die in L.A. The film stars Roy Schieder, Bruno Kremer, and Francisco Rabal. Alrighty, so for this film, we're going to be rating this on the Filmjoe scale of 1 to 10 explosives.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So,
Yeah.
all right. So before we get into it, let's get into some production backstory. This is actually technically the second adaptation of George Armand's 1950s novel. I'm going to butcher this. Le Salaire de la Pierre.
Oui, oui.
Yes. Okay. And is often considered a remake of the 1953 film Wages of Fear. Scorcerer was originally conceived as a small-scale project for William Friedkin before his next major film, which would have been The Devil's Triangle, with a modest $2.5 million budget. The cost of Scorcerer was earmarked at $15 million and quickly escalated to $22 million following grueling production problems. They were filming out in predominantly the Dominican Republic. And, weather and so forth and locations really made things complicated. So this expanding of the budget, it actually required that two major studios come in with Paramount and Universal, and both sharing the U.S. distribution costs for the film. And the international release. William Friedkin, he originally envisioned the cast with Steve McQueen. Obviously didn't get him. McQueen did read the script, and he said that this was one of the best scripts he had ever read, but he didn't want to leave the country or his wife, Ally McGraw, at the time. And in fact, he even suggested that she have a part in the film, and Friedkin was like, there are no women really in the film. No major parts for women. And it's not a sexist thing. It's just what it was. So it was just these 4 men predominantly, in their experience. So after this, disagreement, McQueen left the project, and they went with they actually offered it to Clint Eastwood, Jack Nicholson, and they both, they're like, no, we ain't traveling to the jungles of the Dominican Republic. So they're like, no, thank you. And so it was at that time that Universal executive Sid Sheinberg, he suggested Roy Schieder. And, he was hot off of Jaws at the time. And so they went with him on that. So Scorcerer opened theatrically in the U.S. on June 24th, 1977. All righty. So Daisy, what are your takes on this first-time watch?
Well, okay, so it's the biggest problem that I have with all of these movies that we've been watching. 2 hours, okay? 2 hours, and it drags like ass, okay? I get it. You're building a story around each one of these characters. Does it really, play into the story? I mean, kind of, but not really. Okay. I mean, we get it. They're all, they're all bad guys. They're all, on the wrong side of the fence per se. They're all hiding from the law or from somebody. Okay, I get that. But an hour just to do that. So yeah, I definitely had an issue with that. But I mean, when it does kick in, it kicks in. I do love, how they have to transport this, very unstable substance through this bumpy ass fucking terrain. And I thought that was really cool. I really did like that story, but I don't think that they should have taken a fucking hour to get to that point,
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, this was my first watch. So, it was very entertaining. It did have me engaged.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. All righty. Fair enough. What about you, Liss? Here we go.
It was a first watch. Here we go. You know what? I was kind of close to liking it, right?
Okay.
Because I get like they're pushing everyone to their limits and you know what I mean? But there's the two big problems I had, like Daisy said, the pacing. Like, it's just so slow. My mind wanders. When I get bored, I finish my shopping list. And I felt like in this movie, I wasn't rooting for anyone. Like, I don't know if character connection is a thing. You know way more about filmography than me, but like, I didn't feel connected to anybody. I was just like, okay, it's one of the four.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Oh, actually, you know what? It was three things. And I hate when they put the loud music on, like the sounds are trying to tell me how to feel.
Right.
Like, I don't like that. If something tells me to get in, exactly. Fuck you. I'll feel the other way just because. Bite your ass.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just so slow. I felt no connection. It was just, but the bridge scene was kind of cool.
Okay. No,
But very
fair enough.
slow.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, this is my second time watching the film. I had heard about it as one of these lost films that just got smothered in history. And so the first time I watched it, I freaking loved it. The second time, which would be this time, I really enjoyed it as well. Yeah, I agree with you guys. It does really drag for the first close to an hour telling the backstories. I do believe that Friedkin could have done this with 5-10 minutes tops per character.
Exactly.
And because it really wasn't, I mean, it's simple. Roy Scheider's character. Well, before we continue, let's tell the listeners what the gist is. And you basically got four guys from different parts of the world, totally unconnected. They all find themselves in a situation where they gotta disappear. They gotta take off. You got one guy, which is Roy Scheider, who's a mobster. He makes a big mistake and he gets some people killed, and now they want him dead. So he leaves the country. And you got this other guy who's wanted for financial, I guess, embezzlement and fraud, and they're about to arrest him, put him in jail for life. So he needs to get the fuck out of Dodge as well. And you got a terrorist in the Middle East, a Palestinian terrorist. They're after him now. He has to leave. And then the final guy, who was the final guy? I didn't get much of that one
Russian
dude.
guy?
Yeah, he was some sort of an assassin that he needed to leave the country or whatever. So all four of these guys, they end up at oil refinery. Was it in South America somewhere? And there's another oil refinery set up miles away that it blows up. It's on fire, and the only way to, to stop these oil fires is a massive explosion with like nitroglycerin, and it seals because you got oil popping up constantly, so it's constant fire. So they have nitroglycerin in a shack somewhere in the jungle that's been sitting there for forever, and it's all wet and stuff, and it's mega unstable. You basically jolt it a little bit and you explode. So these 6 cases, they have to be transported from one part of the jungle to the other in order to seal this fire, put them in trucks and so forth. And so
sounds very familiar.
Yeah. And so they get these 4 losers to volunteer for an extra paycheck to transport these things through the jungle. And so hence the tension mounts. So that's the gist of the film.
Pretty good premise, I have to say.
Yeah, it's a great premise. And again, the 4 stories could have been told in a much more succinct, straightforward way. But for me, once you get to the trucks, and actually when they start building the trucks and putting them together, you feel like, oh man, this shit's gonna go down. And so yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I love the tension and the suspense.
Yeah, like I said, it sounds familiar. If you guys watch Lost, you'll remember that scene where Jack and his buddies go into the jungle and they come across that dynamite, and they have to use that dynamite to blow up the opening of that entrance down below. But yeah, one of the guys actually gets blown up, and there's like chunks all over the place. It was really cool.
But did you actually feel sad when that guy got blown up?
Not really, no. I was like
this. I feel like I don't care about anybody in the movie.
Well, you know what? That's an interesting aspect of the characters, is that they're all despicable characters. They're all, or maybe they're just seeking a second chance or whatever. But yeah, you really don't feel sympathy for the characters. So you really don't have a stake in that aspect. Just the fact that these trucks might blow up, and it's pretty intense.
So we're supposed to care about the trucks?
Yeah.
And it's funny, and another thing that kind of annoyed me, because I knew nothing of this movie when I first started watching it. So I see the title, Sorcerer. I'm like, oh, my brother, he picked out a fucking fantasy. That's awesome.
That's what I thought it was too. When I sat down, I was like, is this the right movie? And I paused it, double checked the year and the title. I'm like, yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, and I was so disappointed. And I'm like, the only, tie-in for that title was the fucking truck that was named Sorcerer.
Well, actually, that's very interesting. You guys point that out, and I'm going to circle back to that because it's very interesting. So, I think because this movie obviously didn't do well in the box office, and again, I'll circle back to that. But the bridge crossing sequence was mind blowing. Not only did they do it once, they did it twice. Where it's a rickety rope bridge that looked like it was built 100 years before, and they get this 4-ton truck with having to cross it during a rainstorm, and it's swinging back and forth, and
That was cool.
it was insane. And I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, that is the most intense action suspense sequence I've ever seen put on film. And it was amazing. But Friedkin not only does it once, he does it again with the second truck, which is like, you don't sit there going, oh, he's doing it again. He's rehashing a previous scene. No, it stands alone. And it's like, wow, it was incredible. And if you guys are ever interested, online, you look up, there's a whole story behind the river and the bridge and all that, how the initial location they filmed that, for that, there was no water in the river and they didn't have an actual storm. But yeah, it's a great story behind that.
Interesting.
Yeah. It had a lot of clever stuff. I love that remember when the road is blocked with a tree, and they put up, they set up this MacGyver timed explosive device on there.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Again, once you get past the setup and the whole expository and background of the characters, I think it's really, really good. And I think you guys remember The Exorcist, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And The Exorcist kind of started off the same way. It was very slow. But I think Friedkin was more successful with The Exorcist.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's a horror movie, and you do feel kind of creeped out every now and then. It was just a totally different feel to this. I don't like a movie that confuses me.
Right.
I don't like a movie that I have to figure out, that I have to be like, what the fuck is going on? What is all this shit? I get to the point.
Yeah. And I think that the first time I saw this, I had the same reaction. It's like, where is this going? I mean, this is remotely interesting, but what's the point of this?
It was a little confusing, but I feel like it never got anywhere. Like, it didn't give enough of a backstory. They dragged out just nothing. I don't know. They should have just given more information on each character, or equal amount on each one at least.
Right.
To make you actually care a little bit. I don't know why I'm so hung up on that. Like, I just don't care about any of these people.
I think
I'm more interested how the wife did on her book.
Exactly. Yeah, no shit. And I think that's the closest we got to feeling anything for a character, is when that guy, the husband, he's talking about his wife, and then blows a tire, and they were screwed. They blow up.
Yeah. That was kind of, I remember the first time I saw that was unexpected. I mean, yeah, because they're driving and everything's going good. I mean, boom, boom, boom. He's like, oh, in fact, when he starts talking about his wife and stuff like that, and something personal. And like you said, Liss, that's the formula, right? You go, when a character starts to talk about something personal or their plans, or you start to get into their humanity, they die.
Yeah,
and which was really sudden. I mean, you got the tire blowing and the truck flies off the road and explodes, and that was pretty jarring the first time I saw it.
Yeah, I thought it was like I said, he was like the only character that that we got close to, in a sense, the most likable character.
Right.
And at that, it was just barely,
Right.
But I think what does hold the film is the whole the journey in the once they get into the trucks, that whole journey. That's where the meat of the film is, and I think it really works. And you kind of forgive the first act and a half.
You do.
Yeah, and and I love the ending. it was fucked up. 'Cause
He went through shit. He literally went through fucking hell.
yeah,
And they
because
got him.
Roy Scheider, the mobster, he's the only survivor. And you're like, oh man. And he's at this little cafe down there and he's having a nice cold beer, nice meal. And they're like, congratulations, here's your check. And cool, everything's going good. And he has this one last dance with this older lady, like this waitress there. And then you cut to outside, and what do you see? This car drive up with two mobsters from New York come out of the car, and they walk in, and that's where it ends. They kill him. They fucking kill him at the end. All that for nothing. And I thought that was pretty messed up ending. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, because they're bad guys, you know. Bad guys are supposed to have nice endings. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you don't do that stuff in church, then get away with it.
That was
You don't
messed
play
up.
with that.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and I think that's one thing with all these characters in this film, these four main characters, they're really not redeemable. And so maybe that's the point that Friedkin was trying to make was, I'm going to give you a movie with not heroes, not even anti-heroes, you know, four guys who are just on a human level trying to survive, but they're all pieces of shit. And you don't care for them, but it's their journey into hell and their damnation. And I think that's the whole point, is that the good guys go to heaven, the bad guys go to hell, and all these four guys go to hell. And in Scheider's character, because of what he did, stealing that money from the church in New York, he is the worst offender. So he gets it last in that, thinking he made it, and they kill him at the end.
Well, you know, and it's funny because that whole sequence where he's driving through that desert, you know, looking place, the guy's already dead next to him, and you can hear his laughter.
Oh, that was creepy. Yeah.
That was creepy, and it gave it a hellish kind of, you know, feel to it. You really felt that he was in hell.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. You know, one could interpret it as, you know, hell was calling out to him and mocking him and telling him, yeah, you may survive, but you will not. You have eternal damnation. And so, yeah, I think for that, I mean, to me, this is a work. It's almost a masterpiece. Again, with the opening sequences, could have been shortened a bit, you know, the introduction to each character. I think this could have been a perfect or close to perfect film, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, I'm going to circle back to what you were saying, Daisy, earlier. And Liz, when you heard the title, you thought it was what?
Like some kind of fantasy, I don't know. I was thinking like never ending story type, you know, background. I don't know.
Right.
I wasn't expecting this.
Exactly. And especially around that time, the fantasy sci-fi thing was kind of kicking in. So you have that, and that did throw audiences off. Even though they saw the trailer, they're thinking, oh, Scorcerer, there's something there. Maybe he gets thrown to medieval times. I don't know. Which, you know, but it definitely threw people off. That was one. Two, the movie opens mostly with subtitles. And audiences were not as accepting the subtitle film back in the mid to late 70s. So word got around, yeah, this opens with subtitles, and people thought it was a foreign film. So it kind of turned them off. So that was another thing. People didn't really stick through it. And finally, this movie opened just 1 month after Star Wars.
Yeah, big mistake.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't think, nobody thought Star Wars would be such a huge hit. So they scheduled it a month after. And Star Wars pretty much sucked out all the oxygen out of the air and just crushed the competition for months on end after that. So all that combined, this movie really suffered for all those three things. But I think the major impact was Star Wars itself. Had this come out, say, 3 months, 4 months, or even a year before, this movie might have done better. Because keep in mind, you know, just remember the sequences of the bridge for just that alone. Those would have been considered iconic, memorable sequences that would have lived on historically in film because they were perfectly done. Again, I think the other part, had they changed the title to, I don't know, The Jungle or Explosives, I don't know, something catchy.
Yeah, exactly.
So different title and a different release time, I think this movie would have been considered a classic to this day, even with the extended introduction to all the characters.
Right.
Yeah. So now let's get into the budget and the box office on this one. So the budget of this film at the time was about $22 million, which is about a bit over $116 million today. So it was a huge budget. Box office, when it was released, it only made $9 million. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a huge loss.
Yeah, and that's about $47 million today. So that's pretty sad. I mean, again, it's not a perfect film as it is, but I think it's better than what how it was received in the box office. Especially again, you look at William Friedkin's direction. He's a damn good director, and I think he really tightened the bolts on a lot of the sequences of suspense and in action in this film. And Roy Schieder, come on, I love Roy Schieder. I think he was great in this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's go into the reviews and scores on this one. So the film received generally negative reviews upon its release. Roger Ebert, however, he considered Scorcerer one of the top 10 films of 1977.
Wait, did he hate Star Wars?
No, he loves Star Wars.
Oh, okay. I know. I thought one of them hated Star Wars.
No, they both love Star Wars. Okay. Cisco and Ebert, yeah. But
top 10 of a year worth of like shitty movies. Yeah, go ahead.
IMDb, it's sitting at a nice, impressive 7.7 with a Metascore of 68. Rotten Tomatoes critic score 82% with an audience score of 83, and Letterboxd has this at 4.2 stars out of 5. So it definitely warmed up as the decades passed, so people recognizing the finer aspects of the film or appreciating it at a different level. Again, you look at the audience back in 77, what they were expecting, what they were exposed to, what kind of films were out, and the title and so forth. You can see why even critics were kind of like cold on this one. But throughout the years, it's been reevaluated after all this time. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. So there was no sequels or spin-offs on this one. So what do you say we give our ratings on this one? Daisy, you go first.
Okie dokie. So, so I did not enjoy the first half of the movie, but I did enjoy the second half of the movie.
Okay.
So that being said, I'm gonna give it 5 explosives.
Okay.
As 10 being the highest. Okay. I'm gonna give it half a score, so 5 explosives for this movie.
Fair enough. Okay, that's fair enough. What about you, Liss?
And I think I watched this in the wrong decade. I get what it was going for. It didn't hit with me. I didn't care like what happened anyway. But I do appreciate the bridge scene, so I'll give it 4 explosives.
4, okay. Oof. Can't push it up to 5 even, maybe?
It took up like 2 hours out of my life. How am I going to get those back?
Ever.
All right. So for me, look, I thought it was personally, once the meat of the film kicked in, it was a super tight, tense thriller. Schieder and the rest of the cast, I think they were great. To me, it was William Friedkin. He was a star. I think he really tied in, with editing, cutting, and tension. He really brought the suspense out really well. To me, this is on the Filmjoe scale. I'm going to have to give this 8.5 out of 10 explosives.
Wow.
That was really generous.
I love this film. I think it's amazing. Yes.
So Joe's one of those people that likes being told how to feel by sounds. Okay.
Wow. Look, it was better than Wicked. All right. So yeah.
Oh Lord.
Okay.
All righty. So let's see. So what do you say we jump into our next film?
Okay. Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. So next up, they didn't know his face. They didn't know his name. But they'd never forget the day he drifted into town.
Fellow like that, what do we know about him? Who is he? Where's he come from?
We're talking about hiring a gunfighter.
What if we offered you anything you want?
Maybe you think you're fast enough to keep up with us, huh?
A lot faster than you'll ever live to be.
This is a God-fearing town. These God-fearing people.
Oh, you're gonna look awfully silly with that knife sticking up your ass.
What did you say your name was again?
You're a man who makes people afraid, and that's dangerous.
about time this town has a new sheriff.
I never did know your name.
A gunfighting stranger comes to the small town settlement of Lago and is hired to bring the townsfolk together in an attempt to hold off 3 outlaws who are on their way. The film we got here is High Plains Drifter from 1973, directed by Clint Eastwood, and the film stars Clint Eastwood, Verna Bloom, and Mariana Hill. So, for this film, we're going to be rating this on the Filmjoe scale of 1 to 10 whips.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Fair enough. All right. So let's get into some production backstory here. Now, before we get into the production backstory, let's get into a little backstory on Clint Eastwood himself. As we all know, he gained a lot of fame off of the Italian westerns like A Fistful of Dollars, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and so forth. And the way that came about was Clint Eastwood in the early 60s, he was on a Western TV series called Rawhide, which was very popular. He was very popular, and the show it did really, really well. And so it came to an end. I don't know what year, mid 60s, early 60s, around there. The show was canceled, and he was out of a job. He was still very well known and a very popular Western TV star. And but he had no job. He had nothing coming to him because he was kind of pigeonholed in that, doing Westerns. And I don't think, people wanted him in another Western show because it's like, he's double dipping. And of course, there's film and there's television. So Hollywood really wasn't knocking on his door. So his agent calls him up. And now this is a very rough retelling and kind of like paraphrase backstory at Eastwood. But as it goes, his agent calls him up and he says, "Hey, Mr. Eastwood, I got you a job." He goes, "Oh, fantastic. What is it?" "It's for a major film and it's a Western." Eastwood is all down for this, and this is great. "We'll be filming in Italy. It's an Italian Western." And Eastwood's reaction was like, "What the fuck? Italian Westerns? Is that even a thing?" And so he didn't think it was a very good idea, or it didn't sound very appealing, but he needed a job. So he took it, and the film was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which turned in, I don't know if it was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, or For a Few Dollars More. It's one of those. I forgot which came first. But he took the job, and it turned into a trilogy and turned him not only into a big Hollywood star, but a big international star. And it was huge. It basically, he created a brand. He was Clint Eastwood, and it was this new style of the Western. And it wasn't your typical John Ford style Western. So after his run with the Italian Westerns, he comes back out here to the States. He's now a major star. And now Hollywood is ready to make love, sweet, sweet love to Clint Eastwood. And so at that time, he created his own studio. It was called Malpaso. So, the script came his way. He loved it. He thought it was offbeat and it was unique and so, and he was just off a 9-page treatment. So he approached Universal with the idea of directing, and this is the first film that he both directed and starred in. And this will be under a joint production with Malpaso and Universal. And so the original screenplay was written by M.S. Tiedemann, who had won the Oscar for Best Screenplay for The French Connection, which was directed by William Friedkin, by the way, who did Scorcerer. Interesting, right?
Wow.
Right. So once it got started, they wanted Eastwood to shoot on the backlots of Universal, but Eastwood opted more to film on location because that's what they did back in Italy. They weren't using sound stages. They were out in the deserts, out in the mountains, and he wanted to recreate that feel.
Right.
So he got in his pickup truck one time and he took a drive out in Nevada, California, Oregon, and he found a spot in Oregon near a lake that he thought was perfect. And he said, "This is it." So again, being the mega star internationally that Eastwood was, they said, "Sure, we'll film there." And they ended up, they had over 50 technicians and construction workers, and they built an entire town, which is basically 14 houses, a church, a 2-story hotel, and it took 18 days using 150,000 feet of lumber. The buildings that were completed, they weren't just facades, like the outside is real, there is no inside. Well, he built these things 100% that you can shoot inside as well.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and that saved a lot of money. And apparently so much money. The film was completed in 6 weeks, which was 2 days ahead of schedule. And he brought it in under budget, hence solidifying Hollywood's love affair with Clint Eastwood. He was the man to go to. Then the film was finally released in the United States on April 7th, 1973. So, Daisy, your takes.
Okay, so it was my first view. I've seen quite a few of westerns, and this was like the most unique western that I've ever seen. It started off very creepy. The music was very creepy. It felt more like a horror movie than a western.
So kind of a paranormal angle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I got that feel all throughout the movie. You're wondering, who is this guy? And then he starts having these dreams about somebody being whipped. You look at you actually look really close to the guy. Like, you see certain similarities to Clint Eastwood, but then it's then you're like, no, but that's not him.
Right,
So,
it's a different guy, right?
exactly. So you're going through the whole movie like trying to like think like, is it him? Is it really him? Is he out to get vengeance for what they did to him? And then you notice how he's kind of nice to certain people, and nice that's like a very that's really lightly said,
Right.
because he's a dick.
Yeah, he is.
He's a bully. He's a rapist.
Yeah.
And and then when he is nice, it's very like to the little guy. Mordecai, he treats him better than everybody else.
Right.
That chick in the saloon, the not blonde one,
Right.
he's a little bit nicer to her than he is to the other chick.
Right,
Not
right.
much, I mean, yeah. So I mean, it was a really weird movie, kind of fever dreamish,
Yeah, no, I agree. What about you, Liss?
First off, I want to apologize for all the names that I called you when I realized it was a Western.
Okay.
A Western. They're like, I don't know. It's same thing. It's such low stakes. It's like forced tension. It's the sound tells you how to feel. It's just overacting, and I don't know. I hate Westerns. But you know what's cool about this is when I looked it up, just because my son told me, it was based off the murder of Kitty Genovese.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I did. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah, but it was that's my review.
Okay. I mean, for me, this is the first time I watch it. Well, actually, it's the second time, because my mom and dad, when I was like 6 years old, we went to the drive-in to go see this. And I do remember a couple of scenes, that stuck out. I mean, but I was 6, so I just didn't get it. It's like, oh, Clint Eastwood, cool guy, killing bad guys, whatever.
No.
And now the second time I watched it, very interesting. Initially, I was kind of thrown off. I mean, is he a good guy? He's not a good guy. He's not even an anti-hero. He's just a dick, like you said. He's a bad guy. And I was thrown off by that. Why would Clint Eastwood, who typically always plays the good guy, why would he do that? But the deeper I got to, into the film, the more I started to realize, and I kind of got it, especially in the ending. So, to me, the ending was the big aha moment and made me go, fuck, this movie is amazing. And we're going to get into this. And of course, we do spoil the shit out of it, but damn good film.
I did like it. I did. I mean, even with the whole the rapes and everything, but yeah, you start to wonder, like, is he obviously he's not an angel. That theory went right out the window when he had that scene with that woman. I'm like, so what the fuck is his deal? And then at the end, like you said, that ending,
it hits you.
Yeah.
And I love this because it definitely, what I love is that with this American production that Clint Eastwood spearheaded, he didn't forget about who or what made him famous. And it has a very strong Sergio Leone feel to it. It feels like those Italian spaghetti westerns. And it's his way of, I guess, acknowledging that aspect. Because he could have made this as a more straightforward western. But I love the fact that he went to his roots, to what made him famous, and continued that on forward. But yeah, off the bat, because he comes into this town, and it's a mining town. And apparently it was terrorized by three, bad guys who were always, raping and pillaging and whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they hired gunmen to protect them. And now these gunmen turn out to be just as bad. So the day that Eastwood rides into town, they start fucking with him off the bat because he's a stranger, and he kills them really, really quick, which was really cool. And so now he's walking out of down the street, and there's this woman who calls him an animal. She starts ripping into him, talking shit to him, this very proper looking woman. And he straight grabs her, throws her over his shoulder, takes her into the barn, and rapes her. And I was like, whoa, this is not cool. Because from then on, you do have this misogynistic tone in the film, especially towards her. And I'm thinking, this is cringy. This is problematic, especially by today's standards. And I was wondering why. But then we get it deeper into the film, and we get it.
Yeah, it just showed like the whole town just watched on, didn't care, didn't do anything.
Yeah, and it threw me off. It really did. But
and my question was, did she? Okay, this is fucked up. I
know what you're going to ask. Did she start to enjoy it?
Exactly. Yes. Twice she enjoyed it, too.
Yeah, that's what threw me off too. You know what's weird though, on the bystander effect, if you ever looked into it, the only reason I know this is because I covered it on my podcast, Kitty Genovese. And I guess that statistically, if there's more people standing around watching an incident, it's less likely that each individual will act. But if it's one-on-one, like if you see something happen and you're alone, your statistics for acting are a lot higher.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that strange?
That is strange.
Yeah, because I'm guessing because you're kind of like saying, well, maybe that person will step in instead. You know?
And you don't want to act and have people watch you do it. So if you're by yourself, you just have the responsibility falls more on you. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomena. And maybe that could have been the case here, or they were all just cowards and too afraid, and then hence making them just as culpable to the act as the offender. I mean, you look at the flashback or the dreams that Eastwood is having, the stranger, because there was a sheriff or a marshal there. Marshal that was there before and in charge. And I guess he caught wind that the mining company was into some crooked shit, as were some of the key people running the town. And he found out, and they murdered him in cold blood in the middle of the road by whipping him to death. And the entire town just watching and not doing anything, even though they knew what was going on. And so these are the dreams or nightmares that the stranger begins to have. And I started to wonder why that was.
And there was only two people that were kind of like, they wanted, that actually seemed like they cared. And that was the woman in the saloon and the little guy.
Yeah.
He was looking from the bottom. Like they were really like bothered by it. Everybody else just was like, oh, okay, that's happening.
And it's funny because when they hire him and they're like, you can have anything you want, he turns into a complete asshole. He's like, okay, really? Anything? All right. He walks into this store. He goes, I'll take those boots. I'll take these pants. I'll take that shirt, this hat, this gun, this, that, and just totally taking advantage. And I thought, hey, come on, dude. They need your help, and you're taking advantage. Then he walks into the bar with the whole crowd behind him. He orders a drink, and he orders a drink for everybody on him, just taking advantage. And I'm thinking, that's, I can't really identify with him as a hero.
But there is that one point where he goes into the general store and he sees the Native American little kids and the old man, and, they're treating them like shit.
Right.
And he's like, you know what? He gives them both big old jars of candy, and the other guy gives a bunch of blankets and stuff. And he's like, no, it's good. It's on me.
Yeah. And I thought that was really nice. So that kind of started confusing me a little bit. Why is he picking out certain people? And so, the dream sequences, I started kind of putting it together. And, remember, he says, when the stranger, he starts to instruct the town, he's quote unquote training them. You go on when the bad guys roll in, you're going to be up on the roof over there. You're going to be inside of here. You're going to have a rifle there, set up an ambush. He sets, he's training them to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And, he goes, oh yeah. And I want to get some paint and paint the entire town red.
That's crazy.
And the sign for the town, it says Lagos, which was the name of the town. He changes it to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start to piece all this together, and I've kind of figured it out. Is the stranger the Marshal?
Exactly.
And Marshal Duncan. But wait a minute, they killed Marshal Duncan. He's dead and buried. They buried him. He was actually dead. So how can this? So that's where it started. Maybe he knew him.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's to me where it becomes sort of whatchamacallit, a paranormal film.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because there is a scene that you're like, nah, that's bullshit. The bathtub.
The bathtub.
The bathtub was so gross. It was like fucking gray ass water. And then the creepiest shit was when the freaking sheriff sat right next to him. Dude's butt naked in the water, and the sheriff's like, "Hey, let's talk." Like, what the fuck? Go away.
Not to mention, the little guy was washing him.
Oh, come on. The whole thing was so cringe.
Yeah. So, so what all comes down to is, and it is validated, in my opinion, in the last scene, while, it's accepted pretty much that he was could be the angel of vengeance or even a figure of the apocalypse bringing on death.
Well, yeah, because like I said, the bathtub scene, the rape victim came back. She's like, oh, hell no. She shot at him into the water. You see the gunshots going into the water. How the hell are you going to miss that?
Exactly. And, you look at it, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, death, generally, the horses depicted different colors sometimes, but generally the horse is depicted as white. Mm-hmm. And what color is his horse? It's white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so could he have been the horse, death itself, and that it was the spirit of Duncan coming back. And that would explain why he raped that woman, because she was complicit. She was the wife of one of the main bad guys who was, into corruption and had the original Marshal killed. And she was in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the second time that she brings in, she has sex with the stranger, it was all a setup to get him killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a little hoe.
She was a hoe.
So does that justify him the way he treated her in the beginning? In a way, yes. If he's just this vengeful spirit, this bitch, I'm going to rape her. She deserves it. So that was, so you kind of go, okay. And then the way he treats certain people. And when the bad guys finally do roll in, does he step in and do something? No.
Mm-mm. No.
He lets the bad guys practically burn down the town and do what they will and fuck everybody up. He lets everybody get what they deserve.
Right.
And then at the end, when, the bad guys are in the bar, they have the whole town in there, they're holding them down. They're like, yeah, this is our town now, yada, yada. A whip comes out of from behind the saloon doors and grabs one of the bad guys by the throat and pulls him out. And all you hear is the whipping sounds and screaming, which is very reminiscent of how Marshal Duncan was murdered before.
Exactly.
And then here's the key thing. What happens right after? The stranger throws the whip inside the bar and it hits the floor and all focus is on the whip.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how you motherfuckers killed me. This is yours. This is guess who, And so I think that, yeah, it reaffirms it. And he kills the second guy also with a whip by hanging him, and he kills the third guy by shooting him and killing him finally. The way, again, he treats certain people, the little guy, Mordecai, he treats him with respect and dignity. He was the one probably who was most pushed around before he came, to town. The wife of the saloon owner, who was very sweet and very nice. In fact, remember the scene where the stranger, he's going to have dinner by himself. He's like, yeah, maybe I need a little company. And he looks at the wife and you think, oh shit, he's going to rape her too. She even tells him and he's like, no, I just want a little company. And he just has her there to talk to. So he treats her well. And so, but everybody else to a certain degree, he lets them have it. But it isn't until the end In fact, you even look at it when he's, with the whip and he's whipping that one dude and the building is on fire behind the stranger. It's like there's vengeance coming from hell. Just an amazing shot. So, yeah, I mean, I think, the theory is kind of confirmed that the Drifter is the Marshal come back, especially when he throws the whip back in the bar. And, of course, his treatment of everybody and his justified, quote, unquote, rape of the woman. So,
Right, exactly. And then not to mention, towards the end, there's that little guy. He's painting on a sign or something. I forgot what it was that he was writing, but he looks up at Clint Eastwood and he goes, "Hey, you know what? I never did catch your name." And he looks at him. He goes, "You know my name." And
yes.
then he kind of rides off into the sunset and he disappears behind that mirage.
Yeah, and then you get a shot of the tombstone that says Jim Duncan, rest in peace.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was blown away because they did mention before that he was buried in an unmarked grave and that his soul will never rest. Mm-hmm. And so I mean that just blew me away. So it does confirm it. They say it's a theory that he was a spirit. No, I think that pretty much confirms it right there. Because when he does tell him, he goes, "I never did know your name." He goes, "Yes, you do," and he rides off. That really. Really.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and even when he talks, he is a vengeful spirit. It's out for vengeance, and once there is one part where they have the plan going on, and we're going to ambush him, and one of them asks the stranger, "Then what do we do after? What about afterwards?" And he just tells him, "Then you live with it."
Yep.
And that's what because vengeance is not that simple. It's something that's not like, okay, let's party. It's something that you have to live with because you committed this vengeful act of murder, and of killing somebody, and so it's pretty heavy. I loved it. So it pretty much is a Western with a paranormal twist to it.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. So let's get into the budget and the box office on this one. So the budget at the time was about $5.5 million, which is about $39 million today. And box office at the time, $15.7 million, which is about $113 million. So it did really, really well at the box office. I mean, the guy was ready. Clint Eastwood was already a solidified box office draw and a star. So, and it's first film, the first film he ever directed. So, So let's go with some reviews and scores on this one. So the film was received well by many critics. Gene Siskel, he gave the film 3 out of 4 stars. And he said, what does work very well indeed is Eastwood's presence, personal style, and direction. Though his iconic sense of humor often drags out of the pacing out of the film, Eastwood uses his camera with intelligence and flair. All right, so he dug it, and IMDb is sitting at a 7.4, has a Metascore of 69, Rotten Tomatoes critic score 94% with an audience score of 86%, and Letterboxd has it at 3.7 stars out of 5. So yeah, I mean, there were no sequels and remakes off of this one, so it was a one-off. So what do you say we go into our ratings? Daisy.
Okay, so yeah, this was the first time I've ever watched this movie. It was a very unique take on a Western. And, I think because for me, I'm going to classify it as a paranormal movie. I'm going to give it an 8.5. Now,
wow.
Yeah, no, because I mean, because it's a, I consider it a paranormal flick. I think had it not had that paranormal aspect to it, I wouldn't have liked it as much simply because, I don't condone rape. I think rape is just wrong on all, doesn't matter if it's, for vengeance or not. It's not cool. And it's, even though it is a paranormal, it's still not cool.
Mm-hmm.
But, I did like it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Okay. Awesome. Fair enough. Yeah, and you may not condone it, but you see the motive, the logic and the motive. Whereas rape does not have motive and does not have logic, and so yeah, you don't accept it, but you go, I understand why.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty, Liss.
Yeah, I'm I don't like Westerns. I've tried. I think Tombstone will go down in history as the only one that I enjoyed. It's the corny one-liners and stuff. I can't stand it. And like, I get the idea is really cool that, the vengeance personified, all that, but it's just not for me. 4 whips. Sorry.
4 whips. Wow. That's 2 4s in a row.
I know.
Okay.
Let's get into the 80s and the numbers will change.
Oh, man. I can't wait for the 80s.
Right?
Well, to me, I thought, it was surprising the shift in this film it had with me, because I was leaning one way towards the beginning, and I just didn't get it. I didn't understand why this character would do that, and I found no redeeming qualities in the quote unquote hero. Mm-hmm. But then it all comes together, and I thought it was masterfully done. The sound design, the cinematography, the script, and the whole the gist of the story. I thought it was great. And with the supernatural twist, which I really enjoyed. And it's funny because people don't look back at this movie as a paranormal angled film. They look, it's just a standard Western, but it's more than that.
It is.
And it's a little bit more complex. So I'm going to give this 8 out of 10 whips.
Nice.
Okay. Look at Daisy giving a higher score on a Western than you. All right.
Wow. Look at that, huh?
All
right. Wow.
Only because it was a supernatural.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah. No, but it was good. I mean, these 2 films really were products of their time. I mean, you see a lot of elements that you kind of like don't, kind of don't work, but you do see a lot of devices that are still used in film today, and I think that either one of these 2 can easily be remade and be done very successful. Like I don't know about High Plains Drifter; they'll probably tone down or eliminate the rape, but I think that would be a disservice to the story, because it is an integral part of the character and the storyline and the motives.
Well, I think it'll taking that out. It's definitely going to change the character.
Yeah, exactly, and which is why a film like that can never be remade. Mm-hmm. And as far as Scorcerer, I stand by it. I love it. It's one of my favorite thrillers of all time. Well, you know what? That's a good segue into our next segment here. So, folks, join us next week as we complete our journey into the 1970s. Yes. Liss, you're gonna miss the 70s. You really are.
We can pretend, yeah.
So, join us next week as we bring you Taxi Driver from 1976. Directed by Martin Scorsese, and it stars Robert De Niro. And also we're going to have And Justice for All from 1979, starring Al Pacino. So hopefully we get to close out the 70s with a bang and on a positive note. Right, Liss?
Right. Right. We'll see. I have heard good things about Taxi Driver, so we'll see.
I have too, so I have hope.
Yeah, it's an interesting film. It really is. Both of these are. So So what do you say we start winding this episode down?
Okay,
sure.
All righty. So we really hope you enjoyed the show. Please help to support the podcast by giving us a nice 5-star rating or leave us a good review. Or another way to support us is simply to subscribe and or follow us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, Boomplay, or wherever you get your podcast fix. You can also catch me on my monthly horror podcast, Fear on Film, with Sean O'Connor, where we cover all the latest in the world of horror film. It's also available on all the same platforms. And as for Liss, you can catch her on her podcast, Ouch, was that a ghost? On Patreon, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your creepy and weird podcast fix. Also, don't forget to check us out on Instagram, YouTube, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky. All of these can be found in our LinkTree link below in the show notes. So be sure to click on it, check it out, drop us a line, tell us how we're doing. You can also contact us directly via email to thefilmjoepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. So with that being said, I'm Joe.
I'm Daisy.
And I'm Liss.
And this is the Filmjoe Podcast,
where film talk happens.